wondering how I got into this mix.
Hey, what's up everyone? This is Derrick Broze with the Conscious Resistance Network. Today is Wednesday, October 25th, 2017, and I have a quick update for you today. For one, I'm testing out some new equipment, doing this video capture and recording on some new audio devices, so if there's any issues, please be patient with me. But I want to get right to this. We are facing the 7th anniversary coming up, 7 years of war in Libya. It started in 2011 officially, but it's been going on for much earlier than that once you start to look in this. And that's what I want to get into today, is talking about the death of Muammar Gaddafi, the former ruler of Libya, and what's happened since the United States got involved in the past few years. So let's take a look at this real quick. We'll break this down from the history to what happened exactly leading to the bombing and invasion of Libya by the United States, and then the eventual killing of Gaddafi. So first off, let's go ahead and look at some of the history here. Now, when you visit Wikipedia, which of course is the open source library on the internet where everybody can add information and they can source the information. So for those who are saying, this is Wikipedia, this is not credible, go ahead and look into this. So look at the Libyan civil war, and I would also advise everybody to look further into this. Don't just take this one page, because there's a lot of history that goes on to it. But in the current era, what we know about what was going on into Libya, there was the revolutions, as many call them, the color revolutions taking place in Egypt and in Tunisia around that time, 2010 going into 2011. It's a very big moment. There was this Egyptian revolution that people thought was going to lead to some kind of mass change. Unfortunately, now looking back, we know that there was U.S. and Western involvement in stirring up these quote-unquote revolutions, and that now Egypt in a lot of ways is not is no more free than they were before, now being ran by military powers. But in the eyes of the mainstream, the way that this is taught to us and presented to us is that these were all random revolutions that just started to spring up, the Arab Spring as they call it, and that this was spreading to Libya, and the Libyan civil war was just spreading. And the United States, of course, being the good humanitarians we are, led by Obama and Hillary Clinton, said that we needed to go in there to save people. And it's the typical things we've seen from every single conflict. Saddam Hussein has weapons of mass destruction. They're throwing babies out of incubators. Assad has weapons in Syria. They're gassing their citizens. And I'm not going to get into this video on the specifics, the reality, the truth behind those matters. There's plenty of other research, and I've written articles on that. All I will say is that you should definitely question the story that we're given by the state's narrative, and we should always look deeper. And when you start to look deeper and you start to look at the origins of the Libyan civil war, you can see the typical features that we've come to become familiar with in these conflicts. And by that I mean, you look into the beginning when they first started implementing this no-fly zone over Libya, and they said it was necessary to use all necessary measures to prevent attacks on civilians. Again, telling the people the civilians are being killed, we need to go in there, it's a humanitarian conflict, we got to go save them. And this was the story we were told. So the bombings started in March of 2011. And September 2011, the National Transitional Council was recognized by the United Nations as the legal representative of Libya. So think about that. If we had a leader in the United States who started to assert their power, some activist, some other movement, and it was, to subvert the United States, which I'm totally okay with. But if that started to happen, and then internationally other countries say, you know what, we're not going to recognize Trump, Obama, Bernie Sanders, Hillary Clinton, whoever the leader is, we're not going to recognize them. We're going to recognize this activist, this small player as the new leader. And the rest of the world tried to enforce that. This is the way that the United Nations and the United States, the Western governments do, is they put out their decrees and they force everybody else to go along with it. So by September 2011, Gaddafi was no longer seen to be in power according to the world leaders. He remained there in the country at large until October 20th, when he was captured and then killed by his own people. And if you're into that kind of stuff, there's plenty of videos showing his last moments on YouTube. People shove a bayonet up his ass and just basically mutilate and rape him in his last moments as he's begging for help and support. And I'm not here to defend Gaddafi in any way by any means. All I'm here to say is that the way the man went out was definitely not I don't know. I just don't even want to get into that. But let's look into the death of him. He was captured and killed on October 20th, 2011 during the Battle of Sirte. He was found hiding, and he was captured by National Transitional Council Forces. Again, National Transitional Council Forces. They're supposed to help transition to the next stage, which now we can look forward to what's happening in 2017. Just a side note, 2017, there is now slavery, legal slavery. People are being bought and sold as slaves in Libya since the United States chose to go rescue them for humanitarian reasons and free that country, as they like to say, spread democracy and freedom around the world, right? Well, now those people are facing all sorts of horrible, deplorable conditions. So Gaddafi was killed as he was shouting for his forgiveness and for his life. But let's start looking back at that time, though, and what was actually taking place. And I'm just going to be really brief on this. I have all the links below for everyone who wants to check this out. This is just to give you a primer. If you've never actually looked in, for some reason you're completely unaware of these things that have been taking place in recent years, then it's time to start digging into this. So this is an article from March 2011, whenever the bombing was just starting to take place, whenever the no-fly zones and all this kind of stuff was starting to happen. So even the Washington Post, which is in the last 6-7 years has become more and more of a propagator of fake establishment news, and they have a history of being involved with the CIA via Amazon, Jeff Bezos, look into that. But even just 6-7 years ago, they were actually reporting more truth than they probably would today. It says that the Obama administration has sent teams of CIA operatives into Libya in a rush to gather intelligence on the identities and capabilities of rebel forces who are opposed to Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi. And this is according to U.S. officials at the time. Now, this isn't really that dangerous of a thing. Just makes sense, right? All governments, all countries are keeping track of each other. And if there's an uprising going on, you better believe that they want to go over there and make sure that somebody friendly to their cause, to the nation's interest, national interest, is going to get in power. And if not, then they're happy to give them supplies and give them weapons that they need in order to make sure that somebody friendly does get in power. So it says the information has become more crucial as the administration and its coalition partners move closer to providing direct military aid or guidance. So this is leading up to the days. This hadn't even been happened yet, but there was already reports saying that Obama had sent CIA operatives over there. And anywhere you see the CIA, you better look for drug running. You better look for overthrowing of governments, all sorts of criminal activity. Although the administration has pledged that no U.S. ground troops will be deployed in Libya, officials said on Wednesday that President Obama has issued a secret finding that would authorize the CIA to carry out a clandestine effort to provide arms and other support to Libyan opposition groups. So it was reported in 2011 the CIA, special team of CIA operatives, sent over there to Libya to investigate the situation, and that Obama signed a presidential finding, secret finding, which presidents do from time to time, but Obama did this, authorizing the CIA to give out weapons and arms to Libyan opposition groups. Now, think about this. This is what we've seen taking place in Syria and other places. We know now, if you've been doing your homework, that the United States, the CIA, the Department of Defense, and other groups knew that the situation they were creating in Libya and Syria and elsewhere was going to lead to the refugee crisis. It was going to lead to the rise of various Islamist groups. Essentially, you could say that the CIA knew that they were going to create ISIS, and they were going to create this big boogeyman for us to be afraid of, the American public to be afraid of for the last couple years. And they did it anyways. They supplied these rebel groups with weapons, as they have done in every other country that they're trying to overthrow the people that they don't like in power. They've been doing it since the 80s in Afghanistan against the Russians, when we first armed the Mujahideen and Osama bin Laden and Al-Qaeda, and they've been doing it in Libya, and they've been doing it in Syria. So let's look at some more reports really quickly from that time period. Remember, this Washington Post article is coming out in March 2011, CIA gathering intelligence on rebels, but they're not just gathering intelligence, they're actually giving them weapons. And then we can go over here to another article, says exclusive Obama authorizes secret help for Libya rebels. And this is coming from Reuters. This is the original report. This is, again, nothing conspiratorial about this. President Obama has signed a secret order authorizing covert U.S. government support for rebel forces seeking to oust Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi, government officials told Reuters on Wednesday, March 2011. Obama signed the order, known as a presidential finding, within the last 2 or 3 weeks, according to government sources familiar with the matter. Such findings are a principal form of presidential directive used to authorize secret operations by the CIA. This is a necessary legal step before such action can take place, but does not mean that it will. It did happen, in fact. Of course, the CIA declined to comment, and this is, spreading widely at the time. So we have two mainstream sources, Washington Post and Reuters, reporting that not only was the CIA over there advising these rebels, but they were supplying weapons to them. And when you start to dig deeper in this and you see, okay, the story that we're told is there's a random, authentic uprising taking place as part of the Arab Spring that came into Tunisia and Egypt and was starting to spread to Libya and other places. And the United States is just going to send advisors from the CIA to investigate the situation and to possibly arm people who could be helpful in getting rid of Gaddafi. But why would the U.S. want to get rid of Gaddafi? Why would the Western interests, the French governments and the British governments and all these various Western nations, why would they want to get rid of Gaddafi all of a sudden? Well, let's look at this article here from The Ecologist, and we'll look at a couple other ones. Gaddafi's has previously threatened attempts to establish an independent African currency, which was not taken lightly by Western interests. In 2011, former French Prime Minister reportedly called the Libyan leader a threat to the financial security of the world. How could this tiny country of 6 million people pose such a threat? Well, you start to get into this and you realize that the global banking system, which has run through central banks, including the Federal Reserve System and other central banks around the world, and on the global level, you have the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, which they go into poor countries, they give them loans, and when those poor countries default on those loans because they can't pay them, they say, okay, well, give us all your gold, give us all your resources, and they essentially make them slaves to the global banks. But many people in the Middle East and in North Africa, where Libya is located, are rightfully so suspicious and weary of working with the Western governments and their petrodollar and the Western banks and all these things. And Muammar Gaddafi was one of these people who spoke out for a number of years about the need for African independence. And while he was leading the country, it says that African nations had convened at least twice for monetary unification. This is the thing, is Gaddafi 2 times called for the creation of a gold-backed currency that could challenge the U.S. hegemony over the U.S. dollar. So basically what that means, in case you're not aware, all oil reserves, all gas that is found in the world, it must be sold via U.S. dollars. That's what's known as the petrodollar. This is part of the Bretton Woods Act that happened generations ago. Back in, the 40s, I believe. And basically what that means is the US dollar, which we use here in the United States, is extremely strong compared to other currencies because everybody is forced through these governments to buy dollars in order to buy and sell oil. This is a big problem for many countries that don't want to be dependent on the U.S. And so Gaddafi and other people, other African nations, have long said, we're going to create a secondary way to go about this. We're going to create a way to totally cut the U.S. out of this. And we're still seeing this play out right now with China and other nations. But Gaddafi was one of the first people to talk about this. He talked about this at the United Nations. And right before the United States chose to go save everybody from Libya on their humanitarian war, the gold dinar, which was the currency that they were going to use in Libya, was being issued by the Central Bank of Libya. This central bank is 100% state-owned and independent, so foreigners would have to go through the Central Bank of Libya in order to do business with Libya. This would give them some power. This would give the citizens power, as their money would now be backed by gold and would not be forced to go through the U.S. dollar. And this is a threat to the Western nations' hegemony. This is a threat to everything that they have tried to build, which is complete control and domination over smaller nations and individuals who don't play their game, who want to, maybe they want, again, I'm not saying Gaddafi's a good guy. Maybe he wants his own version of a world order, an African world order. But we're seeing the Anglo-Saxon, the European Western nations world order. It's the one that's currently dominating our world, and they will not allow for anybody to step outside of that system. And Gaddafi was speaking very publicly about going outside that system. Here you have another article from RT, May 5th, 2011, Saving the World Economy from Gaddafi. Look in that one. It goes even further, talking about how Gaddafi was going to change the economic landscape of the world, and they could not allow that to happen. And here you go, April 2011, a month even earlier than these other ones. David Swanson writing an opinion piece for The Guardian, calling Libya another neocon war. It's just, all the evidence was there. Unfortunately, the American public is still and continues to be very heavily brainwashed into believing everything they see on TV, and really not doing their own research. They just, they've done such a great job, and by they I mean the establishment have done such a great job in recent months to really get it to the point where the average person doesn't trust something unless they see it coming from, the big stations on TV and things of that sort. So we want to get past that. We want to get to the point where people are actually able to educate themselves, and it starts with this. It starts by taking time to learn about what's going on, learning some history. 7 years ago wasn't that long ago. How come more people don't know that this is the real reason the United States is over there, and that they are now slaves in Libya based on bombs and attacks that have come from the American government, and they have been funded via the American taxpayer? If this is something you care about, if this is an issue you're concerned about, please share this video as far and wide as you can via Facebook, via YouTube, and all other platforms that you have access to. I'm very thankful to everyone who chooses to support our efforts here on the Conscious Resistance Network. You can check out our website, theconsciousresistance.com. So much gratitude for everyone who will continue to support this. If you want to join our website, become a contributor, please contact me. Keep your eyes open, your heart open, and don't let them distract you. Remember, you are powerful, you are beautiful, and you are free. Peace.